some pop games to cast, and we are going to be opening up with a pretty cool one, actually. I found out that State and Lash had been, in fact, on the Clash. So, let's see who is going to be crowned king when we enter French Pass. Oof. We do get to see two heavily adapted civs in action. Well, I say two. One most definitely, the other, its later game got tuned in a miraculous way. Of course, we've got the Abbasid in the yellow. That is being manned by Keep It Up, You're Doing Great, which of course is State, ranked 10th in the mob right now. And then Lash on the other side, no pushover himself. Of course, we are familiar with this wonderful lad. Right now, ranked 32nd on the normie server, but we're here in Pop where everything just gets flipped upside down. He's going to be in the green as the Roos. Now, both these civs did receive significant changes. Abbasid's most definitely a lot more than the Roos, but the Roos definitely have adaptations that have been made to the way that they function in the later phase of the game. Question mark is whether we're going to get there. Of course, the Abbasid is definitely a civ that are comfortable with the idea of going later on into the game, but not guaranteed, considering with a lot of the changes that got introduced to the way that the wings now work, there are opportunities to end the game faster. In fact, I'm curious to see which way State's going to want to open up. I recall when we actually done the patch notes video, which if you haven't seen that yet, check it out on my YouTube channel. Admittedly, it's 3 hours, and maybe you just get sick of me droning, but I think we actually tapped into a lot of interesting points in that, so be sure to check that out. We covered the whole kit and caboodle. But most notably, when we talked about the Abbasids, we noted a few builds that like to open up. I think, if I remember correctly, Culture Wing is the one that's going to give you a discount on your tech up price, and I think a lot of people are going to lean towards that for a fast Castle Age. But as time goes on, as people get used to these teething phases of the pop and what will eventually be Season 4, I do expect the Trade Wing to come out ahead. And I've got to say, actually, on a map like French Pass, we could see the Trade Wing in action, and with a placement of a House of Wisdom like that, I think State is a smart enough cookie to look to crack this one open. Look at the distance he's got to go for long-distance trade. So the reason I'm highlighting this one about trade, why would you think trade that early? Why does he want Trade Wing? Are you crazy, Pigeon? Nah. I've never been more sane. I've never seen clearer because, folks, with the changes to these wings, one big one that Trade Wing got is the moment you tech up with it, you immediately spawn free traders. On a map like this, with that long trade, that's going to return enough gold for him to tech up. He will probably get around 450, and there it is. My boy State. Yes, he knows. I love to see it. So the one that I feared a lot of people would go towards to begin with, we talked about, was the idea of Culture Wing. And the reason we talked about Culture Wing is, as you can see there, Preservation of Knowledge reduces the cost of all technologies by 20%, which meant that you were going to be able to save 20% on a Castle Age tech up, right? Because you get this in Feudal, and then you'd research Preservation Knowledge for 175 resources, and that would save you 20%, which means 360 resources off. Now, here's the interesting thought there. You save 360 resources, but you also spend 175. So you're around just over 200 saved, or you're around the 200 range saved overall. Then you have to equate the fact that the alternative is you get these traders that are probably going to get about 140 gold on this distance each, 3 of them for free. That's going to be a total of 420 gold. You can already see where I'm going with this. You've already saved more. You've already made more than the savings you get from going for the Culture Wing into Preservation Knowledge build. And before anyone says, yeah, but you've got trade, that's not going to be free. It kind of is, actually. One big nuisance you're going to find is that with the way that trade plays out, and we've seen it play out in the past with civs like the Silver Tree builders, the Mongols, when you open up immediately in Feudal Age with traders, your opponent can counter it. But countering it takes time. And that time window is probably a minute, minute and a half, maybe even 2 minutes, unless you open up with spears. I guarantee you there's not going to be many situations in which a Roos opponent is going to be opening up with spears. And, well, speaking of different openings, it's finally time to not look at this and cringe. Instead, you can just look at my face and do that, because we are going to get a Kremlin this time around. Kremlin that got heavily altered, actually. Remember, they made some big changes to this where they added in the Levy Militia function, which allows you to spawn 6 little troopers that can run around for 90 seconds for just 100 food. 3-minute cooldown, so it's relatively balanced. And on a map like this, it would be very difficult to cheese it, because some maps, you can actually run to your opponent's base in about 30 to 40 seconds, depending on the spawn. A map like French Pass should take 45 or 50 seconds. So if your idea is to aggro, probably not much time to work with. But what Lash might be trying to do here is anticipating the trade and looking to shut it down. But even if he now spawns the levy immediately, look at where State is. State is already halfway through the trade. And even though these units will move at 1.5 movement speed, I don't think you're going to arrive quick enough here. Also, big shout out to my boy Vaz7. I see you coming through with the sub. 8 months, we've almost had a baby. Keep him coming. There we go, we're going to see a pull. So, Lash, he did spawn the militia. They're on the move. Now, this militia pull could just be about securing the board. This is another thing that people theory crafted is the militia. Remember, you pay 100 food. You're able to shift them out. They have 6 damage each, 85 health. There's enough of them to tank and kill the boar off. And remember, with the changes they made to the boar now, whatever aggroes it will keep the aggro. So you don't have to worry about moving villagers back to get injured. But I would prefer he goes beyond this. Like, honestly, I prefer he tries to now wall off north side with these villagers in position. That way he guarantees it's just one trade. And remember, these will be the 4 or 5 wooden palisades with 2.5 HP, so less likely to be breached anytime soon. My god, that is a lot of sticks being stuck in him. I mean, someone definitely poked the porky right there. So he will move forward here. Decent amount of time left, right? 40 seconds, but remember that first trade's coming in, and we said about it, like 140 in total between the two resources. We weren't too far off. So 105 gold. Remember, as the Abbasid, you can get a second resource courtesy of the first tier tech. And even if he just gets one run here, this is actually now paid better than going for the culture wing build. Because if you go culture wing, the preservation of knowledge is like, I don't think you actually get a justified saving. You could argue like preservation of knowledge, you'll also save on your other techs, right? Going wheelbarrow, going horticulture. But if your goal is merely fast castle, I don't actually think any other build beats trade wing open. And you can already see the impact. He's got enough gold available. Just needs to get the food. Definitely heading up as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Lash, of course, is benefiting from the boar. And is safe at home. And remember, another beautiful thing about this Kremlin being viable is not just the aggro play. You know, a lot of people are focused on the fact that you now spawn these militia and that were meant to be defensive, but are definitely going to be offensive. Keep in mind that Kremlin always had that sexy element of being a wooden fortress, right? Of giving the influence for the lumber camp. So you always, in build terms, right, you're saving 175 wood there. Which means even if you have a flop levy militia initially, you can kind of afford it, right? Like, it's still a looming threat, it still guards your early game, and can set you up for these board-type plays, even if you can't aggro your opponent's base. Interestingly enough, he's going to use that wooden fortress money he saved to play even deeper, because I didn't even notice this, actually. This is kind of insane. Double boar? Like this. What? Okay, this is quickly looking like a Roos-favored spawn. Not going to lie, folks. Like, imagine this. Imagine the boars spawn on the south side. You can't stop the trade unless you don't go for the boar, right? Your villagers would have to be elsewhere. But the way this is played out, it's actually perfect for Lash to get both. And, well, the timing for Lash is even better. He lets the traders through. That means all 3 are going to die. I don't know if he really needed the wooden fortress, but he just plays it safe. He'll get the wooden palisades up. And, I mean, Lash opening up in a frustrating way here. But, of course, State's opener is complete. Despite the shutdown on his trade, he is about to complete the culture wing in less than 20 seconds. So it is a shame he couldn't get more out of the trade, but in a lot of ways, it already provided its function, right? This quick castle unlock, and now he'll be able to come over the top in a situation where Lash has invested in wooden fortress, double wooden fortress, in fact, double hunting cabin. Yes, he's got the ball, but he needs time. And even if he just keeps pushing knights now, keep in mind you're up against an Abbasid player in Castle Age who can either mirror knights, counter with camel riders, or even kite you with camel archers. Excited to see what he's going to do. It looks like he is actually going to be going the camel archer, camel rider way. A nice mixture there, right? Make sure any heavy damage that gets a knight low, he'll be able to finish them off with the camel archer chasing. And this is actually him trying to min-max speed, if I'm not mistaken, right? The goal here is how do I speed these boys up as quickly as possible. Would expect to see a blacksmith soon to get the speed unlock. Because that's kind of the crazy thing, actually, about thinking about these two comps. Like, if they continue on this path as they go into the later game, the Abbasids will come out ahead. But remember, if the Roost Blade can get enough damage done and drag the game later, they have been heavily buffed in Imperial Plus. It's going to take a lot of time. We're really jumping the gun. He's nowhere near right now. Estate, it looks like he was trying to go for multi-TC here. Those two villagers trying to get on that stone. Remember, these camel archers haven't been upgraded yet, so minimum damage actually taken by Lash. We'll look to back away. Food is looking good for him now. Gold, of course, he had to go hard onto himself. You don't have the benefit of the Golden Gate with this build. But I'd argue, like, in some ways it's worth it, right? Like, Golden Gate, if you're going 40, 50 minutes plus, yeah, it's going to be better than the Kremlin. There's no doubt. But you have to think about opportunity cost here, right? Like, going for the Kremlin gives you options such as going onto the ball or aggroing your opponent's greedy plays. That's the trade-off. So you've got to argue, like, yeah, you can say 50 minutes in the game, Golden Gate's going to be better because all these tickets that save you, or make you rather 50 resources each time you trade, are amazing, but they're triggered return. And although long-term it will be better than Kremlin, if I can, in a situation, get 2 boars secured because of my Kremlin opening, I think I'm going to take that because it's going to be much more potent timing in the first 30 minutes of the game than I would otherwise get out of a Golden Gate. And there's another nice thing about State, right? By going for this double Camel Archer, notice these walls that Lash is now trying to lay out are not going to work. Even if he tries to get them up, he's going to get peppered with arrows. Camel Rider's in the mixer, so Scout removed already. And look at the damage that comes out. Do not underestimate these units, folks. Camel Riders with 28 damage per strike. I believe they actually have a superior attack speed as well to the Knights. It's 1.12, if I remember correctly. Knights are more like 1.25, 1.38 maybe. Now I'm just quoting off movement speeds. You notice the movement out. He's just trying to shut down the food gains, but a little bit too late. Lash is already on his way up at the High Trade House. Now, High Trade House did get buffed, a decent buff, mind you. They decreased the spawn time on the deer from 60 seconds to 45. It's a nice change. I think a lot of people already lean towards the High Trade House, but keep in mind, with the buffs to Saint's Blessing, you're now forsaking a lot of unique tech upgrades that you could only get in the Abbey of the Trinity. That's the trade-off, right? And also, you're just less likely to go into Warrior Monks for buffing your front line without Abbey of Trinity, because instead of spending 120 resources, you end up spending 240. It's like the Knights. I'm not going to be safe in their new little home. They instantly get pinched. So yeah, looking at the attack speed there, 1.5 is even worse than I thought compared to 1.12. That's the thing, like, people look at Camel Rider's stats in a raw number versus number comparison. They say, Knights aren't that much worse off. But when you equate the attack speed difference, because remember, higher is worse, not better, you understand why Camel Riders are so good. And oh my god, the pinch! State catches Lash out in no man's land. I mean, he did get a decent amount of the boar, but if you think about this play, right, the double boar play, the double wooden fortress, the double hunting cabin, he only actually collected less than 1 boar's worth and got shut out. And now State, he could commit a few units to burning down, or maybe he just chops 1 tree up here and continues trading. That's an option available to him. That's definitely a very desirable option on a map like French Pass. But for now, he wants to deal out some punishment. Riding in. I don't like the comp from Lash, man. You're up against Camel Riders and you're building into crossbows. Remember, crossbows, they don't get any bonus there, right? They've got decent base damage, but I have to wonder, is this the most effective answer? You know, could archers be more cost efficient? Maybe, probably not. It's one of those tough ones, actually. I don't think, like, we've seen Camel Riders regularly enough to have a clear answer of what the counter's meant to be. Obviously, spears come to mind, but you're up against Camel Archers as well. Just look at the damage done. This is my other worry, right? Like, your backline is squishy, it's not big enough or bulky enough, and your front line can't hold against Camel Riders either, and it immediately is going to be the Spearman call. Possibly even Men-at-Arms. Quadruple racks build from Lash. Heavy damage done. Militia's going to be spawned. That's a good reaction play. Remember, these units, they do get bonus damage against cavalry. And also keep in mind that the militia, they scale with age. They actually tech up alongside you, right? So notice before they had 6 damage. Now they've been increased to 12 damage. So they are a threat. As a result, State will show respect. But, I mean, he doesn't really have to show much more respect. The only respect remaining is press F to pay respect. Just look at the eco damage that's been done here. Remember, 3 of those 5 kills that Lash claimed were traders. But 12 of the 12 that State have claimed have all been the heads of these poor little serfdom workers. You know, these poor little serfs in the Russian Empire. And yes, to answer people's questions, militia, in a way, counter cavalry. But they don't to the degree that you'd think. These lads, they're carrying bardishas, if you want to be historically accurate. And these weren't really the best of bracing tools. So you won't see the militia brace the same way spearmen would. And notice State, he's just buying time because here's the cool thing, right? Yeah, he's been pushed back to his side, but these militia will time out, and then there's a 1.5-minute window for him to go back into the base. So Lash has to be very quick with getting his army together. I don't like the way he's running the crossbows out like this. I don't really like the way that State is fighting these lads right now. You just run past them. If I recall correctly, you can see your opponent's timer, so you know they're about to clock out. Instead, just go for the crossbows that will last forever. It should be a freebie as well, so Militias go down. Looks like State is playing out for the relics as well. Has chopped for the tree line, so we'll be able to initiate trade if he chooses. And you notice what poor little Lash is trying to do. He realized the mistake he made here. A little bit too late to escape, really. Most of the crossbows are going to go down. Now you can just head back towards the base. Really solid mid-game now for State. It's tough for Lash to easily clinch this back. Like, I think he needs to try and maybe go for another TC himself, get some sort of eco-exploitation. Deer is a nice start, but Deer alone isn't going to cut it, especially if you have to consider that wood into farm transition, say 5 to 8 minutes down the line maximum. I think I'm being generous with 5 minutes anyway. The only way this plays out well is if you can somehow secure the second Deer stack in the mid. Well, for the moment, he at least has the defenses. Remember, he went to the Spearman. Camel Archers are here, though. Remember, Camel Archers, they do still counter out spears like they used to. And nice pivot. I love this. He sends the Camel Riders straight away onto the villagers. So many dying off here. I mean, this is actually crippling for Lash. I think he only lost like 2 in the end, maybe, but the fact is you're not going to lose more in idle time, right? Look at the damage done. You lose your army, it gets reset. Camel Archers are still here to counter out the spears. And if he just keeps chasing on villagers, this is going to allow him to escalate his lead further. And by the way, folks, before anyone says, oh, this isn't too bad. I mean, like, he only killed like 4 more villagers. He lost loads of premium units, got pushed away. State is on 3 TCs. Yeah, you heard that right. State is on 3 TCs, and he already has 2 relics back. Yeah, you heard that right too. This is beginning to look phenomenally chalked, and I don't think Lash realizes just yet how bad it is. He will when he sees the new army come in the next 3 minutes. An army that will probably be double his size in value and pop cap. Sneaky bugger as well, the way he done this. I mean, one crossbow makes his way into the base, but he hasn't actually told anything. Calm as a cucumber will just shiv him down. But notice he never went back for the trade. He doesn't need it, right? It's irrelevant for him. I love the TC play instead. He has mid-map control. He can always lean into that and go for the gold veins if he feels a bit dry. But for now, he just wants to try and mainly get food. Think about what he's building here. Horsemen, camel riders, camel archers, now knights. Sure, there's a decent amount of wood or gold mixed in there, but the primary drain, when you look at the numbers, is going to be food. So his goal with a free TC play is to make sure he has got as much food churning in from farms as possible. And in hindsight, maybe Fertile Crescent would have been better for that, right? Remember, the Fertile Crescent would have discounted the town centers that he built after Castle Age, as well as the farms. I think, honestly, he would have been better going that instead of getting his hands on Preservation and Knowledge. That also would have given access to agriculture. So maybe just a little bit of a tuning issue here. It's possible that State's real intention originally was to go back towards trading after he unlocked it again, but he saw an easier opportunity to take the TCs. But I imagine if we see this build again from State, it will involve the same trade wing opening, but following up with Eco Wing. Because I think whenever you need to transition farms, that's where Fertile Crescent's true value is going to come out. For those that haven't seen this yet, it's a change they made. They got rid of fresh foodstuffs. Fresh foodstuffs actually got moved into the town centers and reduced from 50% reduction on food cost to 35% reduction on food cost. And they replaced it with, in the House of Wisdom anyway, with Fertile Crescent, which is very cheap and it gives you a reduction on the cost of all economy buildings and houses by 25%. So these houses, these mining camps, these mills, the farms, which are using 75 wood, you save a lot when you start scaling up like this. And I think the other cool thing is, of course, agriculture. Like, agriculture every day of the week with this build makes sense. But doesn't really slow him down much, does it, folks? And also, keep in mind, he'll be able to unlock it at a reasonable pace because he took Preservation and Knowledge. Preservation and Knowledge gave him a 20% discount on his Imperial Age. So look what it's going to cost him. Looks a little bit cheeky, a little bit cheaper, right? You're saving, what, 600 resources? Just over 600 resources total? Not bad. And he's not far off what he needs right now. So he can still get the Eco Wing, and then we're talking infinite food, late game Abbasid, probably Golden Age 2, if not 3, in the blink of the eyes. 2 still taking a bit of time, but I think, has he actually daisy-chained everything in? Yeah, he's now escalating. If he branches across this other TC with maybe another mill slot, you know, he's going to be probably up to 40, 45 structures in the next minute or two. But raids on the backside. Draw the attention of Lash. Now, Lash does have a substantial army, but remember, that's not State's goal here. This is the bait and switch. He just drew the entire army to the back of the base, and behind this, State is now comfortably teching up, eco-wing on the way. The problem now as well is Lash still has to counter these knights, right? These knights that can just ride in and find villages. In fact, they are probably going to find some in the corner in a sec. Even if they don't, like, we're talking 21 villages killed by State versus 7 by Lash. And remember, State went trip TC, so he's close to tripling up Lash in the villager department. And honestly, with this type of scale behind him, this game does look all but done. You know, Lash would have to pull off some miracle raids. He's maybe got one opportunity, one shot, but he needs to be in position for this, and he needs to be fast. And I think if he drags himself south like this, he won't be in the right position. This is going to delay his arrival, and this is probably going to allow State to get the tech up, as well as get the initial tech upgrades in Imperial Age. Yeah, he does go north, and the walls are already up. Oh, man, this is the worst-case situation. Now, I don't think he would have got there quick enough otherwise if he just ran instead of chasing. But still, what a stinger. And Lash, well, he has got villagers nearby. They're going to have to cut through fast. He's running out of time. Tech up's about to complete in 15 seconds. He has to chop through these stone walls. Now, stone walls are thick enough that usually you need to chop multiple trees. In fact, compared to palisades in these situations, he'd need to cut 3, possibly 4 trees to get through. And well, without forestry, that's going to take quite a while. We're probably looking at like 30 seconds wasted on tree cutting. I honestly think State's going to get his upgrades. Arching range is also being prepped. Walls going up. Lash, remember, he's revealed himself here. So State is all too aware his opponent's coming around the trees. Probably 2 more trees to be chopped after the one they're now targeting. Upgrades being prepped. It's going to be the improved processing as a priority here. Mass Knights being bundled up, but I imagine more Camel Archers are going to be on the way for State, and State must be close to Golden Age 3, you'd think, but nah, he's still a mile off. So won't have that increased production rate that would actually break the Camel Archer production, but instead he builds the walls up. Let me in! We've done the job! No, you've done your part. You're right, you've done your job. We don't need you anymore. You only cost a mere 32 to replace. I'm pretty sure you gathered enough to cover yourself off that deer. So, gets the clutch walls up. State has once again delayed Lash. Lash, his one opportunity to get back in this, is now shriveling up before his very eyes. He'll attempt to chop through the tree line, but that tree line again, because its stone walls will take longer to get around. That's going to buy more time for the counters. Now, State would benefit very greatly from going 1 or 2 Mangonels here in these choke points. It's the only thing he's really missing in this comp. You know, it seems kind of trivial to have this many Lancers up against this many Spears and Crossbows, but if he upgrades them, they're going to be non-unstoppable. Camel Archers start to counter out. Remember, these are always a tanky, 170 health. The charge comes out because he's torching! State, the choice to go in like this seems like it's bad. Like he's throwing away an army, but he's not. Because of the timing, those Spearmen weren't bracing. And it means that you don't get stunned on the Lancers. Instead, you just clean house. Lash, he loses the front Vanguard. While he has a second row to fall back on, he needs to catch up fast. He's looked for the Imperial Age timing, and he has saved up enough for it, so we'll be able to make his way up. And I imagine we are going to be getting a Spskaya Tower because there is no other way you can play this. And that's unfortunate for Lash. Spskaya, while it did get his health buff by an extra 2k, it's not really what you want to be building now. With the changes they made to the High Armory is a shoo-in for the Roost now. With the ability to essentially turn your bombards into sniper rifles, with the buffs that you can give across your rams, with the discounts you get overall, it's a no-brainer choice. But instead, Lash, he has, well, no game, so you don't get to have a brain alongside it. You have to make the dead brain choice. Spskaya will at least prevent a Sacred Site victory condition for State, but I think we've all read the stories about World War II well enough to understand the advanced strategy of going around the big, scary castle. And although the French don't appear in this one, it's still an appropriate lesson. Because I'm pretty sure... Yep. Look at that, folks. Oh, no. He has an impenetrable line. It'd be a shame if I just walked around it. Oh, my God. There's so many cavalries. Oh, good God. And the stone walls in the center, stone walls north. Like, the double Siege Workshop play, I see what Lash is trying to do, but the problem is his timing is phenomenally slower than State's. State, who is just booming at this stage, 124 villagers, about to hit pop cap overall, probably the next 3 minutes, right? He's already got 50 military in the field. In fact, these numbers don't make sense. Wait. Look at this minimap is strange. You're right. That would be, by the way, apologies for that, folks. I wish I could zoom in with the minimap, but sadly, that hasn't been added to capture age. I don't know if it's been added to the normie caster view. So no way of increasing map size at the moment. But fingers crossed soon. Flash in the base, though. Fingers crossed Lash can hold on. Camel Archers are going to back off for the moment. But remember, you can just skirt this. Exactly what he's doing. Start a step back and snipe out the spears. After that, not really much left to defend with for Lash. Lash, a 50-50 comp of crossbows and spears mix up, but those spears are more or less gone. And the crossbows cannot win out against the Camel Archers here. Those are elite Camel Archers. Walls are going up. Come on, State. He just wants to trade. I can already smell it. I know what this guy is up to. Yeah. ×5 on the market. Guess what? Guess what State wants to do next? He's like, well, I could harvest gold in the center. Nah. I'm gonna harvest gold out the corners. They're easy to defend. And yeah, good eyeballs from the chat. I noticed you guys saw that. Just dodging the brace issue. Because the spearmen, of course, as soon as you start charging for the lancers, and this is the cool thing about the comp that State is running, when you start charging with the lancers, the spears naturally will brace. And then if you peel back the lancers, the Camel Archers get extra damage in for free because the spearmen aren't even chasing them, just standing there. But man, this is looking rough. Honestly, I'm struggling to see the way for Lash. He's just too eco weak, right? Like, if he had military lead still, he can try to manipulate these fights a little bit. But you see we're at the point where State is able to just kind of throw crap at the wall and see what sticks. And it's just like, when I say he's throwing crap at the wall, like, it's not even variety. It's just the same thing over and over again. And the cool thing is, because his economy is so strong, he can afford it, right? His eco is that good as the Abbasid in the late game. The Camel Archers plus Lancers would usually drain you dry. Instead, every time I look up at these numbers, they're bigger and scarier. In fact, it looks like there might be a switcheroo coming. Maybe it was a fake pump. He was looking to press crossbows for a moment there. I don't mind the idea of crossbows just to get the rams, but alternatively, there we go. With the changes they made on the UP server, you can now spawn rams out of Siege Workshops. So why waste time building them with your people when you could just use one person, build a building, and have that going on its lonesome. But I don't think we're going to reach that point, folks. I mean, it's a full dive. The Camel Archers are just going to murder everyone now. I mean, they have a ridiculous amount of damage. 18 per shot, no textiles on Lash. And it looks like the poor guy was trying to trade. It probably was his only way back in this game, but he needed another 15 minutes at least. And I mean, even then, you'd be playing up against the Abbasid trade. It just doesn't work. An Abbasid player this far ahead is just unstoppable, especially when he's so far ahead, he's getting the final wing like it's nothing. Ay, ay, ay. Fubal's asking, like, what can Lash even do against this eco? So he tried to do what he was going to do, which is he tried to raid in. Possibly behind this, he could have re-walled, and then he could have tried to secure trade. He had access to stone walls with Spikaya. But even if you go stone walls, it makes the play of going into trade is even more obvious, and your economy is so small that switching people into stone instead is taking resources away elsewhere. I'd say, like, the walling game was the big deal for Lash. Like, the early game, I really loved this double boar play. I didn't love the double wooden fortress play. I think that was an expensive commitment that didn't actually save much. Probably should have just committed to one. Maybe he didn't even need to go for 2 boars. Probably felt like he wasn't safe enough to go for the aggressive boar first, and then afterwards realized that But that kind of slowed down his timings, I think. And he needed to go in, right? Like, once he had that control, once he blocked off the trade, he seemed a little bit too content to sit back. Really needed to find a way of doing some damage, or at least scouting. I think if Lash had known about this triple TC play, he would have been a lot more aggressive. But instead, he kind of just sat on his hands, waited for his castle timing as you normally would, and thought he'd be able to actually counter out the Abbasids in the same tech. Sadly, though, he was dead wrong in this one. Someone's trying to argue like lightweight beams means that you can build them 50% faster in the field, so why even need Siege Workshops? It is true that you can build them 50% faster, but you need to remember that to build them 50% faster at a speed that makes sense, you need, I'd say, at least 10 people working on them, right? Instead, you can build them every 18 seconds out of these Siege Workshops. Even more impressive for the Abbasids because they increase build speed, right? But like the general thought here is if I bring a villager out, a villager takes like, what is it, 30 seconds I think to build a Siege Workshop? Or 45. So 45 seconds, then once it's up every 18 seconds, like it's just more efficient in a pop cap situation. At this stage in the game, the Abbasid player isn't worried about his like units dying. He just wants to keep pop cap. So if you have like 10 or 20 of your lads building instead of attacking, it's just not efficient late game play. Yeah, for those that don't know the tech we're talking about there, the light beam, it's pretty effective. Basically, it increases your damage, or lightweight beam, sorry. It increases the damage on your rams by 50% and decreases their construction time in the field by 50%. Oh God, look at him go. Knock, knock. The boys are here to play, and there's a lot of them. 23 rams. I'm so happy we're finally getting it. And I think it will actually be viable in the future as well. Now that you can build them out of Siege Workshops, everything's changed. Like, I legit think that was the smartest change. Not even just, like, the attack speed is cool, but the biggest change that mattered was the fact that you don't have to use your people to build them now. Because when you get to late game, people usually want to do cavalry comps, and they just want to keep regurgitating troops into the mixer. You don't want to waste time building. You want to waste time destroying buildings, baby! Gramming intensifies. I think Lash at this point is just like, well, I'm streaming this game. This is content. We'll just sit here and watch this. Oh, man. GG finally gets called. Stay, love the opening of the trade wing. You see the power of it, and you see the power of the Abbasids if they get into this later phase.